Hello YouTube, I'm Toby. Today I have an EVGA GTX550Ti. Now this card is from 2011. It's got 1 GB of GDDR5. It comes with 2 DVI outputs and 1 miniHDMI. It's also got one 6-pin power connector on the back. Also, this particular GTX 550 Ti smells like cigarettes, so I'm guessing whoever had it before me was a smoker. The system we'll be installing this card in is my new test system, and for the processor we have an AMD Athlon X4 4800 CPU. It's a quad-core processor clocked at 3.5 GHz. We have 8 GB of RAM, and it's DDR3, and it's clocked at 1333 MHz. We'll be benchmarking 5 games today, and the games are, well, the Resident Evil 6 benchmarking tool, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Subnautica, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, and Fortnite. So without further ado, let's jump into the Resident Evil 6 benchmarking tool. Now I set the settings to medium, and the card ran quite well, and ended with a score of 3,832. I honestly expected a little more, but I guess this will have to do. Loading up Counter-Strike Global Offensive, I set the settings to medium, and the frame rate seemed to be jumping anywhere between 40 and 70 frames per second. The game was playable, but there's a little stutter every now and then, but ultimately it was kind of fun playing CSGO on this card. Now I'll put a graph on screen where you can see the CPU and GPU utilization for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. The next game I ran was Subnautica. I set the settings to medium, and well, the frame rate was somewhere between 20 and 30 frames per second. So once again, just like with the Resident Evil benchmarking tool, I was expecting more, and honestly this made Subnautica unplayable. It's just not enough. Just like with CSGO, I've got some MSI Afterburner data that I'm going to put on screen so you can see the CPU and GPU utilization. And so far it looks like the GPU is actually somewhat bottlenecking the quad-core Athlon. Next up, I decided to fire up PUBG, set the settings to low, and well, that's when all hell broke loose. Well, to say it mildly, the game is unplayable on this graphics card. The frame rate seems to be hovering somewhere around 20 frames per second, which is, well, it's just too low, and I'm guessing all of you out there know this. The final game I'll be testing is Fortnite, and well, seeing from the previous results, my expectations were very low. I set the settings in Fortnite to low, and well, I was actually positively surprised because this seemed like the frame rate was around 60 frames per second, and well, the game was actually very playable on this card. I did not see that coming, but that was awesome. Now we're not quite done yet. I still wanted to see how much juice I could squeeze out of this card, and I once again opened up MSI Afterburner, and I started overclocking the card a little bit. Now ultimately I didn't get too much of an overclock, but it was just a little bit. And well, seeing as PUBG may have been the easiest game to see this difference in, I decided to fire that up. I once again set the settings to low, but well, frame rate still seemed to be around the 20 frames per second, so the overclock on this card made, well, little to no difference in the PUBG test. Now overall, this card is just barely hanging on to the gaming market. You could see that it could play Fortnite in, well it is 1080p, 60 FPS, but that's pretty much the best thing this thing can do. I mean, Counter-Strike Global Offensive wasn't too good. You really want some more frames than this thing can handle from CSGO. PUBG is out of the question, you're not going to play that on here. Subnautica is also out of the question. I mean, this thing just can't handle that. So the final verdict is, if you want to play Fortnite and this is all you have, sure, you can do it. I'd recommend getting something better, because who knows, this might soon be too obsolete to actually still be using. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching.